pretty close. This is how you scope right here and show.
Yeah, ain't too bad.
Got him? Huh? Bronco bug?
Yeah. Double hook him.
Huh?
I double hooked him.
Second little desk studio video here, and we'll kind of catch everybody up on what's been going on, what we've been doing.
Well, besides working, we've done a lot of that in the last month, but
Yep.
we did manage to squeeze in some fishing, and I'm going to tell you, here in East Texas, for me and Jake, it's been tough. The weather's been the problem, I think. It's some days it's 80 degrees, and then last weekend we was fishing and it was probably close to 80.
Yeah.
And now you go outside and it's about 24 with sleet and rain. And so trying to figure out the fish and zero in on them is pretty difficult. It's been hard to figure out what they want to bite. And in fact, we fished a tournament on Rayburn last month. Last weekend.
Yeah, it was last weekend.
And the bite wasn't terrible once we figured it out. And we ended up placing ninth out of right at 30 boats with a little bit less than 14 pounds. Had a couple that broke our lines, so there's no really telling how big they were. They could have been 2-pounders, they could have been 6-pounders, who knows. But just one more good fish would have bumped us up into the money round.
Yeah.
So
Any fish you lose is like automatically a 5 or above.
yeah, when that line breaks, they gain about 8 pounds. Yeah, your mind just goes to, that was a monster.
Yeah, it had to have been. It broke my 10-pound line.
Which that can bring us to our go figure story. And y'all feel free to comment on this if you have it happen to you. But we was out doing some crappie fishing, me and my friend Michael, and he of course using live scope to chase those crappie around. And while we was fishing for crappie, of course he had a little I believe he had a clobber mint on it from 6 cents, and on just a little old crappie jig head. And we was watching that crappie jig come across, and this big monster, about 8-pounder, come up and smacked it. And he fought that fish for probably, I don't know,
I think it was
3
a 6
minutes
minute,
or so.
I think it was a 6-minute video. It was a really long video.
He finally got it wore out and got it in the boat, and the whole time I'm thinking, I think he had a 6-pound leader on it with 6-pound braid. And the whole time I'm thinking, well, that fish is going to straighten the hook or get off at any moment now, because he was pulling pretty hard and ripping drag. And we ended up getting that fish in the net. Well, now the next weekend, we were out on the same lake, and he got one on his line on a drop shot setup and hung it right pretty close to the boat. And boy, and the fight was on. And it came up right at the trolling motor and shook its head, and it was a pretty good fish. It might have went 8 pounds itself, could have been a little bit bigger. Like I said, they'll gain 2 or 3 pounds when they get off, and you can't weigh them. But shook its head one time, went down, and here comes the hook out of its mouth. And so go figure that you can get a fish on a crappie minnow,
Little crappie
jig
jig,
head,
yeah.
and light rig, and then when you're set up for a good one, they can get off. So if you're going to bass fish,
That's part of it.
you'll always understand what the old ABC Wide World of Sports logo was, the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat.
Yeah.
Because a bass will do that to you in a hurry.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Yeah, it's funny with a lot of modern fishing how there's so much argument about line size and diameter and whether it sinks or floats, all that sort of stuff. And sometimes that's how it is. You catch a a big old fish on a little crappie jig, or you lose it whenever you think you've got the right equipment. I guess it just has to do with how you bring it in, really. I mean, there's skill and technique to bringing a fish into the boat. It's not just reel as hard as you can and then pull it up.
Yeah, there's a lot of technique that can go into it, but I had this conversation with my friend when I was learning how to bass fish and stuff, and I told him, I said, you can plan and figure all you want to do,
Yeah.
but a lot of times it just comes down to luck that you throw your hook
In the right
front of the
spot
right
at the right
fish
time.
and at the right time, and you catching a fish. I guess if you're really good at live scope, you can target big ones.
Yeah.
I'm not that good,
Well, I'm starting to get there.
but there's a lot of luck involved in fishing. You
Yeah.
have to learn
Yeah.
a lot and do a lot, but at the end of the day,
Yeah.
I'd rather be lucky than good.
Yeah. When it comes down to like efficiency, really in any sport, I'd say, not just bass fishing, a lot of it's about getting it to where you take as much of the guesswork out as you can. And, you're trying to maximize your efficiency. Any doubt or anything that might like take more time or something like that, it's all about cutting that stuff out. And, if you cut 1% here or there, but you do it 30 times, that's a 30% increase in efficiency. That's how a lot of that stuff works, especially whenever it comes to like tournament fishing and all the little things that go into it that people do. I mean, I think that's kind of what separates pros from just regular average Joe fishermen, because those dudes, they've got it down to like a science.
Yeah. One thing about bass fishing that I'm learning, and we are novices. I would never want anybody to think we was
Ain't no
giving
pro.
you the pro juice or years of experience. A lot of what we talk about is what we're learning and experiencing, and out there having fun bass fishing. One thing I do learn is that there's supposed to be patterns that you can follow different times of year and find the fish. And this year, those patterns hadn't worked real well. And it's like I said, I think it's the weather more than anything.
Yeah,
These fish
because
don't
like
know
we
where
did
to-
fine during the summer. We really didn't do too bad. It's just been the crazy weather Texas has had, I think, is a lot of it. Like, you can still catch fish in bad weather, quote unquote bad weather, but I mean, right now we ain't going out there because it's like 30 something degrees right now. Yeah, 33. Yeah, I ain't going out in that. But well, I guess how cold was it when y'all had to go out during y'all's tournament? It was in the 30s, wasn't it?
Yeah,
At
it
the
was
very
probably
early
in the
morning.
upper 30s that morning, but it wasn't that bad. Ended up being pretty nice before the day was over.
Yeah. And right now we're hitting our like Texas crazy storm that everyone's been freaking out about. So it's been raining all day and getting down to freezing tonight. So hopefully our pipes don't bust or anything like that.
Yeah, that's always fear you have here in Texas. Is you don't mind some cold weather, and it's not the cold that bothers you. It's all the problems that come along with it. So
Yeah, we ain't used to it.
no, we're not set up for it usually. But the tournament at Rayburn last weekend wasn't a bad tournament, and like I said, we did better than a lot of them. Not as good as some, but fishing on Rayburn right now is dangerous.
Yeah.
9.5 foot low. Of course, I think maybe these rains we're getting right now might bring it up a little bit, but then it's probably even more dangerous because it makes a lot of the other stumps go down.
Yeah.
But 9.5 foot low, you can't go chuck on the bank.
No, not really.
I mean, you can, but the bank you're chucking on is
It's nothing
bare.
but stumps or
there's
bare.
there's no grass in the lake, at least that we fish on our end, and I hear there's not any in it, and I can believe it. And there's no lay downs really in the water like you'd normally find, but the fish were ranging from 2 foot out to 15 foot, and I'm sure some people caught them in deeper water. We ended up catching them. I use that term very loosely. Starting out, in pre-fishing, we went out and pre-fished and caught them doing one thing, and we got back to the ramp, and this guy was at the ramp, another angler team that fishes the media bass with us. And I think they were there practicing for something else. But we were talking about fishing on Rayburn. He said, "Well, we found them today, but one thing about this lake is that they never do the same thing 2 days in a row. So it's hard to get them dialed in." And a lot of times that's true on Rayburn. But in fact, me and Michael were talking about it before we went fishing, that you go and figure them out one day,
Yeah,
and the next day. Well,
that's part of being good is figuring them out every day.
Yeah.
It's hard.
And that happened, on the day before the tournament. We caught them on one bait. Now we did find them in the same area. They didn't completely leave the area, but they moved out away from where they were at before, and were just kind of roaming because the weather had changed.
Yeah.
And we chased them around with live scope some. About 4 to 6 foot of water in a lot of places, but we had one bait that we could get them to hit, and that was a frit side 7 in a certain color.
Yeah.
And I had some other frit side 7s, but we didn't have another bait in the boat that was the exact same bait.
Exact same.
And, I mean, they were eating it. And you just throw it out there among them, and they'd come get it. And they would not hit any other crankbaits. I threw everything under the sun in my boat trying to get them fish to bite something else. That's all they wanted, just something about that frit side that day. And then when the sun came out, we changed positions and went to another place we had caught some decent fish pre-fishing. And I caught those pre-fishing on bronco bug.
Yeah.
Black and blue bronco bug, and they was hitting it pretty regular and pretty good, and went back over there, and that's what I started throwing, and never got a touch.
Yep.
They just ignored it, and we started throwing a peg Texas rig and a 7-inch worm, and I bet we had 40 or 50 bites.
Yeah.
Now a lot of them, it seemed like they was picking up by the tail and swimming off with it.
Yeah.
That same area, we ended up catching a couple of upgrades, and I think I had about a 4-pounder we got in the boat. So that's how our tournament went up there. It was good enough for 9th, which keeps us up in the upper level for Anglers of the Year points, and that's our ultimate goal.
Because not everyone in the tournament's in the Angler of the Year runnings, right?
Well, everybody that registers it, but if you don't fish them all,
if you don't fish them all,
you don't hardly have a chance unless you win like 4 of them.
Yeah.
Which there's some good enough people out there to do.
Yeah. Yeah, we're definitely more novices than a lot of other people. But, I mean, like we said in our other one, like we haven't really been doing this super long. So, for how long we've been fishing, I'd say we're learning pretty quick and doing pretty decent for the most part. But, yeah, I mean, I guess that's pretty much how your tournament went, huh?
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. I mean, when you get off of Rayburn right now, and it was very windy that day, the day of the tournament. We probably had 15 mile per hour, 20 mile per hour winds, so it was very, very rough, and I was very, very glad to get off the water. But, yeah, you go out and fish a tournament at Rayburn, it doesn't matter who's putting it on. It can be a smaller outfit or whatever, and you go out there to fish a tournament, and you're going to end up fishing against some pros.
Yeah.
And so if you ever want to see how you stack up against the pros, go fish any tournament on Rayburn, because there are going to be a couple of them in it. And so I guess getting beat, we didn't get beat real bad. I mean, like probably 6 pounds.
Yeah, because which sounds like it's not a lot, but it definitely can be a struggle to really upgrade like that.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me fishing against pros. I think sometimes I'd have to fish against like a high school team, but not like a regular high school team, but like the remedial class.
Yeah,
bass class.
Like the JV class.
Like the remedial class. Get them out there with their Snoopy rods fishing off the pier or something. And I can go out in my boat with my live scope. I could probably win that one.
Yeah, maybe, or get beat by someone who catches like an 8-pounder on the bank with a fake little like tiny rod. I mean, it happens.
Yeah, I mean, I've caught some good ones off the bank when I was younger, but
yeah, sometimes you catch them on a crappie jig. Sometimes you can't catch them on what you're supposed to.
Yeah, but we went out. I guess it
was Martin Luther King Day, right?
I'm not sure. Yeah, it was Monday.
When we went out.
you get to go fishing when you can, when you work, which our wives would say it's a whole lot.
Yeah.
But, we probably go fishing 2 or 3 times a week when the weather's right, and had a good time for Christmas and got us a couple of new old 18 rods. We got 2 Nighthawks
Yep.
in the medium heavy, and
Yeah, I
we
really
put them
like
to
'em.
some good use this last weekend and
Mm-hmm.
at the tournament. And they're very good crappie. I mean, jigging rods,
Mhm.
crappie jig, not crappie jig, regular jigs for bass, but they're pretty good for that. And I
Yeah.
like using a medium heavy. My next,
Especially when they're on sale like they have been, they definitely feel worth the price. I think they're like I think they're like $90 right now or something. They're fairly cheap right now. But
yeah, they're compared to, you can go to Walmart and get some cheap rods,
yeah,
or you
yeah,
can go to 18 and get some high quality at a fair price.
yeah,
And I enjoy getting my rods from Old 18. In fact, we went out to Nacogdoches, and that'll be some of the videos we're showing today at the end of this. And, of course, we may show them at the beginning.
Well,
of
I
it.
might cut here and there in between us talking and that kind of stuff. But
Yeah, probably going to have to do that because nobody probably wants to hear you talk as much as they want to see a fish
well,
coming in.
yeah,
It
I feel
holds
like
their
if you
attention.
cut back and forth, here's a little bit of action, here's a little bit of fish catching. It's a little bit easier for people to stay entertained.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we went on Lake Nacogdoches, and how early did we get there? It was 6:00? Because it ain't. Well, no, it had to have been a little later than 6 because it
Now,
comes
we went
daylight
late
at like
because it
7.
was cold. and I
No,
wasn't
yeah,
going
we
till
went
late.
out there at
Yeah.
noon. Yeah,
We got there, I think, about 11:30.
yeah, and we only stayed till about 4.
Yeah.
It was 3 or 4. But yeah, for 3 or 4 hours of fishing, we did pretty dang good.
Especially that midday. I think if we'd have been there early in the morning, we'd have gotten a lot
Oh,
more
God,
bites.
yeah.
But
That midday bite feels like the hardest one to get.
I knew I was in trouble when we launched from the boat ramp, and we didn't even crank the motor. We just turned on the trolling motor and started over to our secret spot that everybody knows about that goes
Yeah.
out there. And we always fish it because we always catch a fish or two right there. And first cast Jake made out there with his Neko rig, bam.
Yep.
Second cast, bam. I mean, it was on for the Neko rig. Them bass are really keying in on that slow dropping worm.
Yeah.
Of course, we had the Pro Metal Neko
Neko
weights
weights.
from Picasso, and also I used the tungsten Neko weights from Picasso.
Yeah.
And they got that screw head.
Yeah, I really
Yeah.
like the screw head versus the nail weight.
Yeah, I think it affects the action of the worm. Of course, I'm not
Yeah,
a fish, and I'm not
I think it
underwater
has
looking
to
at
do
it.
with because with the longer nail, it feels like the head doesn't dip down quite as much, but it feels like with the screw in, I feel like it gives it kind of more action on the fall. Like it seems to spiral more with. I mean, it kind of makes sense. I guess it'd be like, a nail versus a really heavy dot on the end of it. The dot, whenever you have it in there, I could see it on the scope. I could see it spiral as it went down. And I would they were just sitting on the bottom, every one of them that I saw when we started. And so I would just chunk it and drop it right in front of them. And I'd see them kind of come up, go over, pick it up, and then start swimming off. And then I'd set the hook. And that was pretty much throughout the day, that was how I was catching them over and over and over again. They weren't all just sitting on the bottom. Some in the second spot we went, they were kind of roaming as we were finding in these groups of what was 5 to 10 fish in a group, it felt like. And they were just moving kind of on the little further out than the hydrilla was. They would be kind of out there swimming in groups. And so if you could toss it in front of them, you'd pick one off a lot of the time.
Yeah, and that was surprising. It's like I said, these fish do some weird stuff. You'd think you'd catch them out of the hydrilla.
Yeah.
and because Nacogdoches has a lot of good hydrilla mats in it. I mean, I don't
right
know
now it's
about
growing out
punching
far.
hydrilla or anything like that. I guess you could, but I can't because I ain't never figured it out yet.
Yeah.
But you go up along the hydrilla, and it seemed like they were up in some coves and stuff where you had the hydrilla in the back of the cove. And where the deeper water come up and it started shallowing
Yeah.
up to right where you're getting to where in the middle of the cove, right where you're starting to get into the hydrilla, they were just grouping up out there,
Yeah.
and some good bass. We ended up catching some.
Yeah, I think
Threes
most of them we
and
caught were
such.
2 to 3 pounds,
Yeah.
it felt like.
It wasn't a bad day, and
No.
I think we caught most of every one of them except for I think two little.
I caught
little
2 of
small
mine on the
ones.
Bronco bug.
On the Bronco.
I don't know if they were small. They were probably 1 to 2, probably 2 pounders, honestly. But
It was big enough to bend the rod a
Yeah.
little bit.
yeah, well, both of those, I threw it out there and just I may have picked it up once or twice and they hit it. But I saw 2 huge fish when we were out there in those stumps. They're the 2 biggest. I'm pretty sure they were bass, but they're like the 2 biggest fish I'd ever seen on scope.
Yeah.
They were huge, just swimming because I could see their tail really, really well on the scope. And so usually when I can see the tail, it's a bigger fish
Yeah, it could be a carp or
or a
something like that.
catfish or something.
Yeah, a lot of times it's hard to tell on these fish. I guess if that's all you do is stare at the live scope, you can probably
Yeah.
get to where you can tell exactly what they are. But who wants to spend all their time staring at the live scope screen?
Yeah.
I mean, I like to use it, but a lot of times I just like to get on in the back of the boat so I can just fish and throw
Yeah.
around and not be bending my neck looking at the screen. But I'm not going to downgrade it because it's an amazing tool for locating where
Yeah.
your fish are at. And, I like to find the fish with it and take
Yeah,
it
that's
off of
kinda
them
how
and
I
then
use it too.
target them.
But that's kind of how I was using it a lot of the day. When it comes to catching like fish on scope, you can use a minnow and all that kind of stuff. But I kind of like finding a group and just chunking the Neko out into a group of them. And usually several of them will follow it down at the same time. They'll fight over that little sucker whenever they're wanting to eat it. But yeah, it did really well for us out on Nac.
I'm going to tell you, I've gotten a lot better at scoping. I've caught some good fish using the scope and, actually trying to do it. But I'm going to say this about live scoping. It ain't no fun when there's 2 people in the boat. I mean, it is fun to be out fishing. But for me, when I'm out there and I've got live scope on and I've been up in front of the boat, I'd like to use it and go out there and try to get better. But then if somebody's fishing, when you feel bad for them because they're in back of the boat or they're up there, and it's hard to fish
Scope 2
two
people
on
at
it
the same
because
time,
you're trying to watch both baits. And so one of these days I'm going to sneak off when Jake's having to work and take off and go out there and just spend all day scoping around.
Yeah.
But that's probably about the best way to get good at it is just
Yeah.
not take anything out there.
One
but
thing
what
to
you're
me
gonna
too
use.
though is like with scope you can be more efficient with your time and you can put the other person in the back of the boat around fish too. If you're using it to where you're just out, what I hate is if you're just way out in the open scoping with a minnow. Now that's what sucks because then the other guy has like, you may see the fish come up on top or something, but other than that, they don't really have much of a way of knowing where the fish are or catching them. Unless just throwing it out there and hoping one gets it,
Yeah.
That's not very fun.
Yeah, that chasing around fish, that's it's got its pluses and minuses, I guess. But as far as pure enjoyment, no, I don't really care for that. But
Yeah, no, me either.
I like chasing crappie around with it. I'm just out there to catch fish. When I go out there to catch crappie, it's not about having fun. It's about putting some meat in the freezer.
Yep. But yeah, I guess we should have grabbed some of the Neko weights and everything that we were talking about, but pretty much this is what I was using was a little old. See if I can find the focus point. There we go. This little janitor here, Crush City, and you just kind of put your weight in the head of it there. And then I use a crossover ring, but you can use whatever, and it kind of has a spot right here in the middle where you can put your crossover ring or just hook it through. And something about just the way it's weighted and everything. I like the Crush City. The tail goes all over the place when you drop this thing, and it kind of likes to spiral down when it's dropping. And yeah, those suckers will just chase it down together in a group. And it's kind of one thing I like about it better than a minnow is that with a minnow, you can't really let the minnow drop. There's all these like rules to a minnow. But when you're fishing with like a worm on like a Neko rig or a wacky rig or something like that, there's not really like a wrong way to do it really. because you just kind of want to drop it in front of them. You can swim it in front of them and then drop it. There's kind of a bunch of ways you can approach, and you can usually throw several times at fish. And with a minnow, it feels like it's not as forgiving, especially for like beginner people like me.
Yeah, well, it was pretty good to us this last week. Another bait that we've been catching a lot of fish on during this cold weather is Picasso Little Spotty. It's got a tungsten head, and this one here's a green tiger chartreuse, I believe.
Is that a chartreuse, or is that just the light?
Yeah, that's a chartreuse.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it is kind of.
Green pumpkin tiger chartreuse, I think is the color, but black and blue works really good, and all of them work really good. It's according to what kind of color, water, and time of year. But these are excellent little micro jigs. It's got the weed guard on it,
Yeah.
and but that don't mean that you're not gonna get hung up. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, you might want to buy a couple extra because you're going to lose some.
Yeah,
if
every
you're
time I
fishing.
tie on a jig, they talk about jigs being good for brush and all that. All I can do is throw them out there in some brush
Yeah, and
I
hook
get
it on a
them
stump.
hooked on something and break them off. But we did make some retrievers that was pretty interesting. I'll have to do a segment on that because they worked really well, and you probably make them for about $2 a piece. So if you break them, lose your line,
Yeah,
and they don't
I know
happen
you
to
can
get
buy
off,
them
but-
online too.
But you buy them online and they're pretty expensive. These are just made with some lines, some lead weights, and some snap swivels.
Mm-hmm.
Put it on your line, drop it down there, and yank it a couple of times.
Yeah,
and,
bam! You save
man,
$15.
Yeah, who cares if you lose one every 2 or 3,
Yeah.
hooks? So because you don't put a line on it to retrieve it. But I guess we could, but I don't want to.
Yeah,
That's just me.
that'd be like extra work.
Yeah.
They're not like so expensive. That you-
they're cheap enough
Yeah.
to build. In fact, these didn't cost me nothing because Michael gave them to me for
Yeah.
Christmas. I think he just wanted me to have them in my boat so
Yeah,
that when we
probably too.
went together, he could get his lures off too. But that's all right. But yeah, we've had a pretty good time fishing, and
Yeah, it'll probably be a little bit before we really get to fish a lot more. So that's one of the reasons we're making a video right now, is because we can't fish hardly whenever it's like 15 degrees outside. I ain't going out now. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, but
Yeah,
I'm not.
we could go fishing, but I ain't going.
No, I don't feel like it.
I don't I don't like fishing in cold in the morning, but it's going to warm up is one thing. But when you go out there and fish and it's cold when you get there and you might get wet and all that, if it's a tournament, I'll make myself do it and I'll go out and I'll try to enjoy it. But if it's not a tournament, man, I can
it
wait.
ain't worth it.
I can wait till another day now. If you could tell me I was going to go out there and catch a 10-pounder, I'd be out there all day.
Yeah, if I knew I'd catch one, but
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much everything we got. It's almost 30 minutes now, but that's pretty much what we've been up to lately, and I guess we'll close it out saying we're the East Texas bass anglers, and we've finally been catching more fish.
Yeah, and you almost call them your sponsors. They're not really my sponsors. I guess I'm on their pro staff, but they're both really good companies too, me. And so shout out to Picasso Lures and Ode 18 Outfitters Rods. I highly recommend them as people, not just as companies. They are excellent people to work with.